But a roll call. I know that we received an excused absent request from Commissioner Guerrero, also one from Mr. Restucci. If there is no objection, we can approve those excused absence.
No objection.
No objection. So without objection, we'll accept to give them both unexcused. Excused, thank you. I just realized what the other word meant. Excused absences for them. All right, so moving on to the active agenda tonight. Do you want to, because we have guests here for the YCDA, do you want to do that first, or should we just take it in order of the active agenda? What is your wishes, folks?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, the first item is not going to take very much time at all.
Okay.
And if we could do that one first, then I think that theirs is probably going to be about 40 minutes or so, 30 to 40 minutes. And so we could certainly do that next, but this one here won't take very long at all.
Okay.
Your attorney is on his way. He'll be here momentarily, so it wouldn't hurt at all just to go that way. And then if you want to switch C and B, that would be, I think, appropriate.
Switch C and B?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any objection to changes in the agenda?
No objection. No.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
If the attorney gets here, since we pay him a lot more than we pay these guys, I might swap that too.
We may swap it
if
up,
that's
guys.
okay.
Is that all right with you? It's all right with us, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, yeah. People we got to pay, we want to get them in and out, you know what I mean? Especially that dude. Okay, just kidding. So then let's go ahead and the East Edison Avenue, 7th to 9th Street sidewalk improvements. Mr. City Manager.
Madam, if I may turn the floor over to Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Day, Mayor, members of council. This item tonight, and we are looking for action, and this is for the East Edison Avenue 7th to 9th sidewalk improvement project. Went out to bid last week. Tabulations on here, we had 5 bidders, all real good bids. The low was a Reclaim Company out of Yakima with a bid of $378,850. And this is to construct the new curb gutter and sidewalk between 7th Street and 9th Street on Edison on the north side only. And this is a good number. It's a good bid. We're just slightly under what was allocated for this project. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Boersma?
Yeah, just a question. That includes tearing out and getting rid of the old sidewalk, curbs and gutters and everything, and then putting it, okay.
Correct.
Was there a
Mr.
grant?
Strumler?
Yeah, was there a grant for part of this?
Yes, there's actually 2 grants. There's TIB and there's STBG. So the TIB is a Transportation Improvement Board through WashDOT, and then there's the STBG, which is a federal pass-through grant, and that's a Surface Transportation Block Grant is what that stands for. So the combination of those two took care of the design through TIB, and the STBG took care of the construction. And the reason for that is we originally went through TIB and were successful, but then as we got looking more and more at the project, we realized there were some storm drainage issues and there were some issues with the ADA ramps, trying to get those far enough back and get the radiuses correct to make those compliant. So at that point, we kind of had to take a step back, and we realized there was going to be more costs involved, so we went ahead and went out and were successful with the STBG grant to help us construct it and to get all those issues resolved through that funding agency.
So this dollar amount then is what it's going to cost the city? Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? I guess assuming we approve this particular bid, when would you start construction? When construction start? First week of June. Oh, we get done with one construction and we start a new one.
I told you.
What's the length on that one?
It's a 30-day schedule, so that's 30 work days, not calendar days. So
It'll be about 45 days. It'll be into the middle of July. It'll be finished.
yeah, we may put them on 410s. We don't know. It's kind of up to them. We try not to dictate their schedule or how they work their guys. But we are concerned, there are some businesses in that area that are concerned about the early start times and noises and whatnot, so we're trying to work around them. As we have the pre-con meeting, the pre-construction meeting will happen probably in 2 weeks with your approval tonight. We're looking probably somewhere the week of the 21st, so I'm guessing probably the 23rd or 24th we'll have a pre-con meeting. We're going to invite the downtown businesses to that to make sure if they have questions or concerns, they can voice them at that meeting with everybody at the table. So that's the plan.
Okay.
And notices have already been sent out to those businesses as well. We sent those out a couple weeks ago, let them know construction's coming, and so we're ramping up for it. But we wanted to make sure that there was plenty of notice to those affected.
Okay. Any other questions? What is the desire of the council?
Move to approve.
Second?
So the motion is move to approve, motion made by Dean Boersma, seconded by John Henry. Is there any debate? Hearing none. Those in favor of accepting this bid of $278,850 signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? I also vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I messed up.
How so?
You're supposed to move E to be after
E,
A.
two right there.
Gentlemen, I left you at the end. We moved the wrong one.
I didn't know where we were going.
I just didn't
Yeah.
notice what I was doing here, so
I thought we were playing
You
by
see
ear.
you see some,
Here's your attorney.
oh,
Yeah, now
man.
you're wait.
you'll just leave it where it's
Move
at.
you to F.
Guess we'll leave it alone. Doggone it.
Remind me not to get off at the first exit at 5 o'clock or 5:30.
Oh, that's a bad idea.
It took me a while.
All right, well,
Better off
seeing-
getting at the Yakima exit.
all right then. So as long as you're here, you take a deep breath and you're on.
You're up.
Oh, here we go.
You know what? That's timing, isn't it? I tell you what. Well, very good. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I got a few handouts here as usual. I did want to. It looks like we're here to really talk about kind of what we have and what we might want to have. Maybe I guess.
It's our community development process.
Yes, this was
So,
Madam Mayor, if I may.
yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, back in a while ago, Mr. Strimler asked me about an ordinance that we used to have, and we looked and looked and looked and found it as a resolution, I believe it was from 1998, to allow for some economic development funds similar to SEED and or CURB. And we asked Mr. Ferguson to look into this and see if, number one, it was legal for a municipality to do this, and if so, what rules would we want to play in place and stuff like that. So that's what he's been researching, and that's what we're here to talk about, is if you want to get into this business. This is very similar, as I said, to what SEED does now and CURB does. Okay, it would be on a local level. Okay, there are some restrictions, and that's what Mr. Ferguson is here to discuss.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you,
with
Don. So essentially what it comes down to is economic development as defined in our state really comes down to how you can legally support things that are important to your community and businesses that you may want to attract. Now, I got to start with a kind of a disclaimer. Washington is maybe in other ways as well, but there's kind of an odd duck in the situation in that we have a really strict constitutional prohibition against the whole gifting of public funds and lending of credit. So this has been a highly litigated issue. And the reason why it has been a highly litigated issue is a lot of people have, or there's been a history of local governments, either both city or county, trying to support certain projects and attract certain things. They've tried to get creative. The most recent high-profile example of this was the Seattle Mariners Stadium, and that went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did find that that was a proper use of taxpayer dollars for a public purpose. So kind of as a starting point, if you'll look on I think we give right there on the second page of the first handout, the two-pager, it says Economic Development in Washington State Introduction. If you look right there about mid-page, it says Article 8, Section 7 of the state constitution provides no county, city, town, or other municipal corporation shall hereafter give any money, property, or loan its money or credit to or in aid of any individual, association, company, or corporation, except for the necessary support of the poor and infirm. And that's pretty strict. So that's kind of our starting point. So everything that takes place after this that are options all come from that starting point. And that's not the way it is. You'll notice right above that where it says the state of Washington is one of the more restrictive in the nation in regard to how public funds may be utilized to attract private investment. So there's a reason why a lot of other I don't know if you folks remember a while back when Boeing was considering moving its headquarters, and it was kind of a mad dash to see who could get Boeing to locate their headquarters, and Chicago, Illinois won hands down because they don't have near the restrictions that we have. So it turns out it wasn't as close as they'd even hoped it was. So that's kind of the starting point with these things, and so we always got to keep that in mind when we're talking about supporting economic development. So what does that mean, economic development? Well, I like what they say on if you look at the front page there, kind of the midway through that first paragraph, it says economic development is better described than defined. So in other words, it's pretty hard to define what exactly is economic development. But in a nutshell, it's pretty much job creation, job retention, job training programs, public and private capital investments. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then business and community capacity building. So and then if you look down but that last paragraph on that first page there where it talks about cities and counties undertake a variety of activities that relate to the fostering of economic development in their regions. Most typical are tourism, facilitating industrial development through land use policies, and creating infrastructure framework that supports economic development activities. The third one there is pretty much the most common one that I come across, although there is something I'll talk about in just a second in terms of some other kind of kind of grassroots ways to support economic development through economic development commissions. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Don, we do not have an economic development commission or council.
That's correct.
Okay, and we do not have, I've never heard of anyway, a economic development coordinator for the city that's in-house.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, I just want to make sure I was tracking with that. So essentially what we have, so this kind of leads us right into our resolution from 1998. That last one there, creating infrastructure framework that supports economic development activities. So this resolution that Don dusted off for us goes back to 98, and it actually replaced a resolution from 93. And I'll be completely honest with you, it really holds up well. It's funny because in doing some research for this and kind of going out and getting all the parts and then coming back and expecting to look at this and think, oh gosh, there's going to be some real things in here that are going to, we're going to need to fix pretty quick. It actually, it's pretty much spot on. But just so you're clear, the resolution that has been brought up, this 1998-22, it only deals with public infrastructure development. That's the only way that it really talks about economic development, is how do we encourage economic development through providing these public infrastructure. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you look on, I guess you guys don't have the resolution in front of you, but I'll just read it to you real quick. There's just 4 ways essentially that it can economic development assistance through this resolution may be considered for the following: water utility and infrastructure constructed on or within the public rights of way, so water lines, sewer lines. That's just water lines. 2 is sewer utilities and infrastructure. 3 is cost of water meter installation may be included if determined appropriate by City Council, whether such water meter be located on public or private property. Or 4, the other utility infrastructure determined appropriate at the sole discretion of the City Council. So that's kind of one of the things that this resolution says over and over and over is at the discretion of City Council, at the discretion of City Council. So, and then there's some things in there that allude to city staff that they have the ability to make some of these decisions without having to come to council every time. But those are more dealing with kind of the nuts and bolts of how to implement what council has already decided they want to support. So really this resolution, pretty much the only thing you have on the books, it sounds like, is this resolution. And you don't necessarily have to have a resolution like this. It certainly is helpful because you're getting the power to do this through the state, the RCW 3521. 3521-703 is the one that grants cities the ability to do these things. So is it important to have it in a resolution? I think so. I mean, it makes it much less susceptible to challenge if you decided there was a project you really wanted to support and provide some incentives to be able to build some of those facilities and then or have them build the facilities. That's what the other thing is really interesting about this resolution is it clearly defines what are public projects and what are private projects, and how you say, well, how would you be able to fund a private project? Well, it's funding a private project for these utilities. So it just means we're not building them. It just means we're not the developer. We're not the contractor. They're doing that, and then we can reimburse them essentially. But at the end of the day, they have to come back to us. Those facilities have to be dedicated back to the city, or then that's gifting, right? We can't be putting private water lines on people's property just to really encourage them to wash potatoes here or something like that. So anyway, so that's kind of this really goes through and does a good job of outlining what we would be able to do in terms of providing those facilities to encourage that business. It doesn't look like we have. I think there's been some previous stuff dealing with tourism that the city might have supported. It seemed like I heard or I thought we came across something like that a while back, but I'd be talking out of school if I tried to talk about that. The other big one is the creation of land use policies. So, for example, in Pasco, one of the things they have is they have a community and economic development department, and they combine those for that very specific reason. That includes planning, which has all their, they're actually, this is what you're going to need to get this project done. But it also has their economic development folks right beside them. And so they can kind of work in tandem to really make sure that what they're doing is on the same page, and it really benefits those folks that come in and are trying to say, well, we really want to do this, but how do we make this happen? So you can kind of combine that. That is a way that you would be able to support economic development directly through an employee, though. So that's kind of the highest level of support. You pay someone on your staff to go out and essentially bird dog down a lot of this money, grants, and they really understand the levers of how these projects work and how to get to that kind of through that process. That one of the main ways that they do that is they do fast track permitting. So, which can, that can essentially, cut red tape. That's kind of the common way they refer to it. I don't know how successful it is, but one of the other ways that you could support economic development would be through, as I mentioned previously, Economic Development Commission or Council. And what essentially that's a separate entity, nonprofit, can't be for profit, but it's a separate entity that supports that their job is really to go out, and they're supposed to be experts in soliciting business, determining what those needs of the city is. I mean, essentially be the conduit between the private sector and the elected government. So that way, those goals that as a council you might want to really push for, you're making sure that's actually boots on the ground, interfacing with other private communities. You can pay for that. That's an activity that you can pay to have somebody do for you, which is oftentimes very helpful. One of the other folks that we represent has one of those. It's Benton City. They have an economic development council, and their job is to essentially, and they have some very specific. Council was very specific in the things that they wanted to support. They're saying, okay, you want us to write you a check, once a year for this. We got it. These are the metrics. We need this many businesses contacted. We need this much follow up with each of those. If they don't locate here, we need specific reasons why. So it really gives you more information to know what you want to support to be able to put those things out there. So I think, we looked at the resolution that you guys have and didn't have any concerns. There's just one little thing in there I think that maybe need to be tweaked next time around, which is refers to some low-income housing stuff that may not be the case anymore. I think we can support certain things for that. If you look at that first two-pager, that's kind of the general one. The second one, you can see I properly lifted these from MRSC and I printed them. So I'm like, I could be writing this all day long. But you'll see the Washington statutes relating to financing economic development. These are some of the ways that the state government and some of the programs, like Mr. Day was referring to earlier about CURB and was it SEED? So there's some state programs, and all these have that are through the state government are that when you're trying to utilize these things, that there's no issues with regard to constitutionality or being able to utilize those things. So, but then more as a you'll see there, and I don't know, I don't think it would, any of the stuff about sales and use tax for public facilities in rural counties. Obviously, we're in the city, so one of the other things that you could do is a public facilities district. You could set up one of those to be able to utilize some of those funds to create things. That's one of the things that Kennewick's done with their public facilities district, to create the convention center. That's a separate municipal corporation. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different nuances to it. But I don't want to purport that I know a lot or know more about this than anybody else, because it's definitely a specialty area that you really want to make sure that you're because of the strict prohibitions that we have. That you're making sure that whatever you're doing is supporting those things that are really your priorities. If that's attracting industrial businesses, then you can do that through not only the stuff you've outlined in your resolution, but you could also do that through land use policies. And so you could expand your zones, your industrial zones, or certain things that would really encourage certain businesses. So there's a lot you can do administratively. It's not just writing a check. It's essentially creating policy for what you really want, but then also backing that up with dollars. Oftentimes is what really obviously helps private sector want to get involved, is knowing that they're going to be able to get facilities out to where they're going to be able to locate. So I guess with that, I would attempt to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Dean.
So basically what I'm hearing here is this that was put together back in 1998 is perfectly fine for the most part, and we can implement this at any time.
I don't see that there's anything that would prevent you from using to do what you're trying to do. There's a couple of I believe there's a couple of things in there that probably aren't still accurate, but I didn't see anything in there as from a policy standpoint or a statutory standpoint that anything was out of date. It appears to be pretty much spot on. I will say this. While it's great to have a resolution defining kind of this really defines your template for your decision template for how you would go through these things. Now, that's great because this helps you if and when somebody comes along and says they want to challenge your support for helping get a water line out to whereverville. That's great on that end. It cuts both ways though. If you don't check these boxes and you've got them as part of the public record, that's going to be the knife that they use to come at you with if you don't follow your own policy and just look like you're being arbitrary and picking winners and losers. So you're going to want to make sure you follow it. But the good news is that it's pretty precise and very well written and it delineates the private and the public projects. It makes it clear exactly what projects could be. It gives the legal foundation for it. So yeah, I think it's really quite clear.
And I guess in that case, I'm disappointed that we let it fall down between the cracks, and I'm grateful to Mr. Stremler for digging it out.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Yes. Can we put limitations in it? An example would be the property must be tax. It has to pay property tax versus tax exempt property.
Whew, that's a good question. Once you start to get into taxes, that's where it does get sticky. The first part of that question would be a resounding yes. You can decide what the requirements that you would you've retained your sole. But first of all, you have no statutory obligation to do this. So if you do it, it's on that's certainly your decision. Now, so And so then, based on that, you can decide what kind of factors you want to support and which ones you don't. You can decide your own criteria, I guess what I'm trying to say. The problem is when you get into that last part of that question, that kind of scares me a little bit, because now you're talking about property tax versus tax exempt. I think the answer to that is yes, because you're not deciding to not collect taxes for a certain property versus a different one. That may be something that they've already determined, or that's something that's already determined, and that's something that you may want to support or not support. So I think the answer to that is yes, but I would definitely want to be sure, because anytime you mention tax, you get really squirrely, because that's when you start giving money away. By not receiving money that you're statutorily obligated to take, you're giving it. So that's where we got to get really careful.
Got another question.
Okay.
I guess my example would be apartment buildings. There's tax exempt apartment buildings, and then there's privately owned taxed property building. An example would be, I think, Catholic Charities is one, Sunnyside Housing Authority is another one. Those are tax exempt, but then there's also a lot of privately owned apartments, and then that's kind of what I'm getting at. You know, one pays tax, the next one doesn't. You're not discriminating between apartment buildings, you might say. It's one pays tax, one does not pay tax.
Right. Well, and I think that the key distinction is that the issue with property tax gets really tough, because that goes mostly through the county, and then I think I'm no tax expert, but that comes back to us. A portion of that comes back to us, so we don't get to collect that directly. So it's not like we're giving them a tax credit or something like that. But yeah, I think if you say, as a priority, a matter of policy, we really want to support these types of properties, and this is why, as long as it comports with what you have written in here, which is it creates jobs and better, environment for the citizens of Sunnyside, all that stuff. I think you can do that, but you would just want to make sure that you're not picking winners and losers and saying that we're only going to support these. I would say also that the changes, the biggest area of changes in this dealt with low-income housing. So we definitely want to make sure that we're okay with that. And I think there's a few of those that are mentioned in this the 6-page portion here about revitalization and renewal areas and all those things. So we just want to make sure that we'd be in conjunction with that. But I can't imagine, it doesn't sound like anything that would be a problem.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
If we decide to do this, what I would suggest we do is put this in an ordinance as opposed to a resolution. And the reason is obviously it got lost for 20 years. Okay? If you codify it, you put in an ordinance and you codify it, it's there for the ages. It's there for the next generation, so to speak. And it was tough to find this, I can assure you. It took us, several months before we actually accidentally found it, because we were looking for a statute, an ordinance. So that would be my suggestion, is if we want to do this, we put it in an ordinance and we codify it so that everybody can read it and see what it is we provide funding for and what breaks we will get as far as the utilities are concerned, or that kind of stuff. And I think that's where you could actually address your concerns as to where you want this money to go, or what money to go. Where you fund it isn't whether it's a tax-exempt organization or a church-affiliated organization, it's the purpose. And I think beyond that, then you're going to get into a little bit of hot water, so to speak. If you're clarifying it with for-profit because they pay property taxes, I think that you could have other ways of recouping some of that money. Okay, for instance, Seed and Curb both use job creation as a criteria. Okay, we happen to have a gentleman here that's quite versed in Seed and Curb, and he might be able to weigh in on this. But that would be my suggestion, is that we codify it, and then while we're working through the codification of it and making an ordinance out of it, we pull another workshop perhaps and have ideas what you want to see in that. Okay, the next issue is you have to fund it if there's going to be money, because we don't have an endless pot of gold. in our utilities either, so you could dry them up quickly.
So, anyone else? Any other thoughts on this? It seems to me that if, going 20 years without knowing that we have something that could have been useful to us at some point along the line, I really stand in favor of making this into an ordinance. So resolutions, apparently you can just write those, but sometimes they're not worth the paper they're written on. So I think that I really kind of stand with that. But then that also gives us the opportunity to figure out some funding as we're going forward. How would we fund it? And I think that that's something we really need to take some serious consideration as well. But I do see the advantages of being able to say, put in there that if it creates jobs, the whole business of creating the infrastructures to support different economic development activities. I think that's really something what we all want to see, unless I'm just talking to myself. I don't think I am. I'm talking to you guys. Yeah, Ron.
If I remember this correctly, it was based on revenue generated over a 10-year period. It was sales tax, property tax, utility tax, I believe.
In the resolution?
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It looked like I wouldn't have. It was tough to kind of figure out the math, but it was pretty clear what their. You took the last 3 years, divided by 50%, go forward.
The way I was told, it was 10 years, and then 50% of that would be deducted off the utility hookups or the city fees. But as I understand it, number of employees did not play into it, which is probably a good thing.
But we could probably do that.
Because you don't know if they're going to live in town or live in Prosser.
Mostly we want them to work and spend their money here.
We don't know they spend their money here. They work here. That's why the tax should be generated around the business, not the employees so much. The employees generate the revenue, which creates the sales tax that comes back into the business, and so that would play into it, but not. I don't believe the calculations ever included employees, revenue from employees, because that's kind of an unknown, real unknown. I'd just like to make sure that.
But I think the job creation
that's
is
important.
certainly a really
it is
important piece.
Absolutely.
The key at the end of the day, and it's kind of tough to quantify, but the math has to work out so that you're benefiting more than you're giving.
Yeah.
So as long as you're in the black, you're not gifting public funds or credit, and so you're allowed to do that. But yeah, and it can be over a certain period of time. It doesn't have to be an instant return on investment. But as long as we're in the black, I think with the calculations and they're reasonable and we can justify them, I think that's we can do that. So am I hearing put this into an ordinance?
Well, what is the wish of the council?
Well, I'd certainly like to see that. I think that's a good idea. It bothers me that the first time I heard about it was in a conversation with a former councilman at the fire station one time at a pancake feed. This is something that could have been useful. Maybe in one huge way, maybe in a whole lot of small ways, but in order to help the city, I think overall we do that by helping businesses and by helping each other, and I think the city in the long run would receive a great benefit from it. So let's move this on.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Do we need to, without objection,
Then we can have Mr. Orr.
without objection, then we will have Mr. Ferguson move forward with creating an ordinance to support this particular.
Is he going to need our input at what we want in it before he drafts it, or can he draft it and then amend it afterward?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
quite frankly, we could start the work and present something at a workshop with some options. And again, as I said, the job creation, that was just an example that Seed uses and Curb uses. You can create this, and I would strongly suggest you guys each read the resolution, and then what we can do is prepare a draft ordinance, leaving in some blanks, fill in the blank type of stuff, and then we can bring it back to you at another workshop, perhaps in June or July, or a special meeting, so that you've got plenty of time to discuss it, okay? And then vet it out that way, and then get your final draft that way. Okay, but we can certainly do that. Staff and the attorney can work on that.
Have we
Bring
received a
back
copy of this resolution?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Pretty certain you all have
On your
received a
email.
copy.
Because I looked for it and didn't find it, but I'll look again.
If,
That was quite a long time ago that we sent that out, I believe.
Okay.
I'll resend it.
January.
if we could, that would be excellent.
January.
Just pretty sure in the wheels of time, I've lost it.
We will resend it.
Okay, thank you. Then without objection, we will have an ordinance drawn up, a draft ordinance, then we can take a look at that, see what we want to do, but following the resolution as a template.
Okay, yeah, we'll get going, and we'll have at least a rough cut to Mr. Day probably in a couple weeks.
Excellent, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing all that work. That really is,
I hope it helped.
yeah, it really
learned a
helped.
lot.
Yeah, and I think it's going to help our community quite a lot, too. It's, like we said, it was sort of a shame that we didn't know we had access to that, but now we do, and now we can make some hay here.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, and
You need to stay for anything? Okay.
thanks for staying and leaving now.
Exactly. And I'm off the clock.
And you're off the clock. Thank you.
Thank you, bye y'all.
All right.
Madam Mayor, if we
That
could-
was practically record time for him.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move to item E, if that's agreeable. The Yakima County Development Association. We have two gentlemen from that group, if they'd like to come and tell us all about. If
Come
you
on up and
come,
sit down if you want to.
come up and sit at one of the mics, or both of the mics. I'm not sure which one they have set up for you, but it would make. It's a little easier to, you can sit in the more comfortable chair there, kiddo.
Oh,
You don't have to sit in that baby chair.
we're good. So, Mayor Hart, council members, thank you for the opportunity to present and share what Yakima County Development Association is doing. Organization was formed in 1986, and ever since it was formed, it's you see the 5-year plan. The first plan was 3 years to get started, and ever since then, there's always been a 5-year plan that the organization has put together, a strategic plan for economic development for the next 5 years. The reason for the long term of those plans is because things in economic development take a long time. We first engaged with Ostrom's in the summer of 2016, and they'll on track to break ground sometime this year, but by the time they hire someone, it'll be 2019 when the plant's operational. So that's 3 years, and that is quite honestly a pretty quick project. So we have a 5-year time frame so that we can, when we're putting together our budget and looking at our strategic priorities, make sure that we have the capacity to see things through in the long term. So, at one point you can say, I have a freshman in high school, he's going to be a senior before these things go, and that's the world of economic development sometimes. Don was down at Recon last year. I was there too, and he can attest the folks that we met with, they already knew what they were doing 2017 for sure. They already knew what they were doing 2018, and they were talking to us about stuff in 2019, maybe 2020 at the earliest, and that was when we met with them in 2020 or in 2017. And so that's the reason why we have the 5-year strategic plan, and also we do our fundraising around that. Is this a strategic plan that the community will support? Russ is with Convergent Nonprofit. Every time that we've done one of these campaigns, we've had someone assist us. The last 3 has been Mel Wagner, who's a local here in the community, Wagner Roofing Company, but he is not able to do that again, and so we've got outside help to kind of guide us, facilitate the strategic planning process, and then also probably the most important thing that Russ did was went out and met with, Don was one of them, but as 63 folks in the community, stakeholders, municipalities, farmers, manufacturers, food processors, et cetera, who are involved and invested in economic development, and said, here's their plan. When it was a draft last fall, does it make sense? What should be changed? Are there things missing? Are there things that should be taken out? what's a realistic dollar amount for them to be able to implement this. Compiled all that feedback, brought it back to our board, and we took that and pulled a group together of folks who, some board members. Jay Hester was on that group as well that participated, and refined it into kind of the overview that you see there. And so the next 5 years, that kind of outlines the things that we're looking at doing. And interestingly, I didn't know that we'd be having the economic development discussion prior to this, but we're not a city economic development commission, but we are recognized by the state as what they call the Associate Development Organization for the county. And so it's a county-wide commission, or EDC, Economic Development Council Commission, if you will. And so we have a contract with the State Department of Commerce to perform economic development work. The city of Sunnyside has always been a supporter, as well as other municipalities up and down the valley and in Yakima County. And so we perform that function. So those initiatives in there, the first one, building local business. Our office worked closely with the port and the city when Coden Sellers went in, and our office administers the SEED program. And over the course of that program's life, since the state legislature authorized that back in '97, there's been $6 to $7 million that have come from that program into Sunnyside to support Coden, Darigold, various projects. And then, CURB was mentioned as well. Don and I both went to the CURB board twice. First time was to get dollars to support the Sunnyside hospital expansion, Astria Hospital expansion in Sunnyside. The second time was over to Wenatchee to get an extension for that. And so our office assists with writing and drafting those applications as necessary. If staff and others are able to do that, we assist as needed. So that's a role that we play as well on that infrastructure side. So supporting local businesses is our primary objective. The second part in that plan is business recruitment, and we believe firmly that the best way to recruit a business here is to be a place that businesses already want to come, or a place that local businesses are doing well and thriving. And so, by supporting the Darigold expansion, and helping the Port of Sunnyside with its expansion of the wastewater system to support a local industry here is ultimately what led to Ostrom's coming here. The Department of Commerce had been working with Ostrom's for about a year and a half as they were trying to find a place on the other side of the state. They wanted to stay in that vicinity and weren't able to find anything that met their requirements. We saw on the list that Department of Commerce sends us of all the projects they're working on that this one had gone cold, that it was specifically focused over there, but it had now gone to cold status. We said, can we reach out and connect with them? And they said, yeah, we think that they're actually looking out of state now because they weren't able to find anything. So we connected with them, and kind of the process that we go through, whether it's a local business that's growing or a new business looking in, based on their specifications, when we get a lead, so to speak, we kick it out. So Don got a copy of an email that went out, Jay at the port did. It went out throughout the valley that there's a company that's in the ag industry, this many acres, this much water, this much electricity, et cetera, as much information as we can get, and we send that out. Now, when it's a local business, we let them dictate. Are they looking to stay in the community? So, when we work with folks like Varietal Brewing and helped Jay at the port put together a CURB application to keep them here, we can be more specific in how we send that out. But we kicked that out, and they immediately zeroed in on the port of Sunnyside, the city of Sunnyside, with this industrial wastewater that could be a potential source of nutrients and things to help them in their mushroom growing. We arranged a trip immediately. Jay and Joe in our office, who's kind of the business recruitment manager for us, drove right over to Lacey, met with them, and here we are, 2018, and things are moving along. So examples of local business recruitment. The next initiative talks about infrastructure, and we've talked about some of the seed. We also engaged in workforce development. working closely with Heritage University, Yakima Valley College, Perry Tech, even Pacific Northwest University of Health Sciences in special cases on programs that will help educate and prepare the workforce. Some lean manufacturing training, food processing training, and a lot of folks have come from Sunnyside and the lower valley to those trainings. In fact, I would say the majority of folks come from, you get from Granger South in terms of food processing and food safety training that we help to facilitate and coordinate. And these are trainings that don't make sense for a community college to put together a course, get an instructor. It's too short of a time frame, or the class size isn't going to be big enough. And so we go out on a regular basis and try to meet with as many of the large companies in the area that we can, and then hear from them what their needs are, and then try to put together programs that fill those gaps. The next one, small business. The Small Business Development Center had kind of gone away. It was unfortunate. Linda, who'd been in that position for about 12 years, retired. And when she started in that position, the State Small Business Development Center, run out of Spokane, had money to place people in specific communities around the state that it wanted. Yakima being one of those. This was kind of like a regional place where it oversaw kind of everything around the western side of the eastern side of the state. But fast forward to 2017 when she retired, the SBDC's source of funding for that through the Small Business Administration had gone away, and so we came forward and provided a cash match to keep that position open and brought the SBDC in-house. And the person who took the position is Sarah Trulio, who worked with the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce and had actually come down and toured some of the ports incubators, Varietal Brewing and Codin, because she ran their incubator programs, and so she already had a relationship with Jay, and Jay has been kind enough to offer up that when she gets all of her certification done, she just started a few months ago as a business advisor, that we can work out an arrangement where she can be down here in Sunnyside, one day a month or however often is needed to kind of work the streets, so to speak. Once she gets up and really going, she's been taking some profit mastery and other courses. The goal is to have her out knocking on doors, so to speak, strategically, not just walk up and down the street, but meet with some businesses and provide them with business advising services. So the SBDC is they'll meaningfully impact, and when I say impact, more than just give someone advice or help them with one question, but ongoing meetings to help a business move from a position here to another position, between 40 to 60 of those in a year, and they use the whole network across the state, 28 other SBDC offices. They all work together, video conference, share resources. So it was an asset that when we saw that it was going to go away, we thought there's no way we can afford to lose that, because our office certainly can't replace a 28 strong network. So we thought it was very important to keep that. So the final initiative is just how do we regularly communicate, and as was mentioned in Benton, there are specific metrics that they report on, and I think Prosser also has an ED, an Economic Development Commission. The Prosser Economic Development Administration, I think, is what they call it. That's just citywide. Us being countywide, our metrics are across the county, but what we're looking to do is kind of on the last page of that green thing, what are the expected outcomes in terms of jobs? And as was mentioned, when people have jobs, they spend money, and that's where the retail tax comes in. And when they build facilities like Ostrom's is doing, they invest $30 million, and when Dairy Gold did its expansion, that generates property tax. And so that's kind of the reason why we do what it is that we do in economic development, is to create the tax revenue for governments to help broaden the tax base so it can ease the millage rate on an individual taxpayer as that gets spread around, and then also increase the spending in the communities and increase people's earning power, and give the residents and the citizens in the communities more options for employment, and then also more options for education. So that's the 5-year plan, and I'm trying to see if there's anything I missed on, but happy to answer any questions or I do think it's very exciting what just happened with the resolution, because with Washington not having, the tools, and in Oregon, they would just throw cash at Ostrom's. Here's $2 million. Do what you will with it. We don't have that capacity, so we really have to make sure that the businesses that we're working with have some sort of a competitive advantage to be here, because we can't compensate for it by paying the money. I see it all the time, and I go to international conferences where a community's got an industry there, and you're like, well, why would that industry ever be there? Well, we just wrote them a check, and they, and it made up for the disadvantages of our community. So being able to put together an ordinance that, kind of spells out where the city will be involved, that carries a lot of weight for Washington. And when he talked about having sites that are ready to go, that was another advantage that Ostrom's took full use of. Was the site there had been already pre-permitted through Quick Sites, which was done way before I came here through the SEED program. So, all of the tools needed to grow the economy, you guys are taking advantage of all of those. So not every city has even approached that, or not every council even has had, those discussions or entertained them. So I think that's great.
It makes a nice historical, to take advantage of that. But looking at all the different, just the expansion of seeing how the seed money and the curb money was able to help with the Dairy Gold expansion and some of the other expansions that have been around, just for the encouragement. It's really obvious in our community where that help has really been beneficial. I think, moving forward with this new resolution, I think that's going to really help us a lot as well.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to ask Jonathan?
I just want to thank you for your information. It was interesting to read over it as I was reading it last night. I just kind of looked at the numbers, and Mr. Hicks just commented to me on this as well. You have some pretty impressive goals. When you're looking at your expected outcomes, return on investment. Those, I'm impressed with what I'm looking at. And are you seeing trends that are saying that you're attaining some of these goals, or? Yeah,
so if you just look at 2017, and so it's kind of comes in spits and spurts. But if Ostrom Mushrooms follows through with their intent, that's 300 jobs. Pro West Mechanical expanded into Wapato, adding 40 jobs through the SEED program and administration of that. There's opportunity to impact, when we tried to look back and kind of average it out and project into the future, somewhere between 100 to 150-ish jobs. And then the Small Business Development Center just by themselves can, impact between, 50 to 100 jobs easily in a meaningful way in a year. And so to get to that 2,949 is, if we're directly involved in a tangible way in supporting 1,500 jobs, because of the multiplier effect, the other 900 is how you get up to the total of 2,000. And we targeted 40,000, but even the Ostroms has indicated that 40,000 is kind of where they start, and they go up from there. And so we picked 40,000 because it was about $4,000 higher than what the current county-wide average wage is. And our experience kind of in economic development is that if you start to get too far out of sync with that, then the skill sets that you need may not be in the community, and so you end up just recruiting people, and you haven't the infrastructure, whether it's educational or training programs, aren't in place. So a good example of that would be when I was in Moses Lake, some data centers were recruited into Quincy. And they just took all the IT guys out of the school districts, out of the hospitals, out of all those places, and they literally went into Big Bend Community College and offered every single student there a job. And some of them they even took before they completed their degree, and the program shut down because it couldn't sustain itself anymore. So fast forward to 2 or 3 years later, those same data centers realized what they'd done. They were investing money into the community college to build those programs back up, but it was because there was such a disparity between what the community was and what had ended up being recruited there. And so, part of that was there's just not that infrastructure in place. And so we're really trying to make sure that we don't have any disruption, so to speak, and that, a new business that comes in can support or be supported by the local community, and that the infrastructure is in place, educational-wise and physical-wise, to support that easily without trying to create a brand new industry here. So
Yeah,
take it in increments, so to speak.
My
in
perspective was
steps.
a little bit different on that one. I know a lot of people throughout the valley. I've lived here for a long time, and we're, for the foreseeable future, we're going to need field workers, people who work in orchards and that sort of thing. But I've never met an orchard worker, for example, who wants their children to grow up to be field workers. My friends who are orchard workers want their children to grow up to be doctors and business owners and that sort of thing. And for those children, as they grow up, to be able to get an education here in the valley, get jobs here in the valley, and stay close to family is, I think, the most desired outcome for most families. In fact, I have a house for sale on my block. Neighbors there would like their grandparent or grandparents of their children to buy that house, and they can have a neighborhood.
Yeah.
But that requires jobs. That requires an income, and that's what I would like to see happen here. We've exported our educated children for many years. I would like to see our children have an opportunity to stay here and continue to raise their families here. So,
Definitely.
Exactly.
One thing we found out during the feasibility study was that the growers, particularly the fruit industry, the century that has been developing as far as the, I don't want to put it as a fiefdom, but in many ways the families that control that. The millennials that are coming back now, it's not because they wanted to initially, it's because their parents want them to come back to take over the business. And quite frankly, they'd moved away, and the idea is that, we want you to run the family business, you want you to do this. Their feeling was that their grandfather and then their father, had taken the business, and at first it was just develop the industry, for their families, just so they could feed the families well. And then it became, let's grow it bigger, and let's put our arms around it, and that's the way it's going to be. There's going to be a few families in the valley, and then finally, it comes down to these people, these millennials, basically say, we want people to come into the valley. We want them to come in for all of the things that it can be, the things that we see now, the things that we always wanted it to develop into. And the parents are saying, okay, we want you to come back. We want you to do that. So you see it's a very generous community, I have to say that. All the way through the valley I found. But what I found also was that they said, 20 years from now, there'll be robots picking the apples. Right now it's about 40% get bruised, of what they've tried. Eventually that's what's going to happen, and that's exactly what. And so my question to them was, well, what's going to happen then to all of those families that have come here who are citizens and that working within the industry then? The comment that I got back was, well, we have to deal with that. And the good news is those children can learn skills and, can work, whether it's not in the field, but maybe in some of the other areas, in the diversification that we see going on now with the growers, not just in the fields, but in a lot of other areas. And of course, with the hops coming in, and you got hops growers who have apple orchards as well, and there's all kinds of things going on there. And then of course with the processors, which would be, I guess, Treetop would be one of those. So they have all this potential, and we said to them, they said to us, one of the companies said, well, what can we do for you? And we simply said, well, do you have anything downstream, that any companies that you're working with, or any upstream? And we had a number of them say, there are a lot of foreign companies that we purchase machinery from, and they come through the valley on a regular basis, to fix the equipment or to adjust it or that. We always thought it'd be a good idea if we could maybe get them to set up an operation, in the valley. That's a perfect lead for Jonathan to jump on.
And some of that's happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're starting to see that happen.
It really is. It's exciting, I have to say. When I first came here, I thought, well, this isn't like Sonoma. It's different, very different. But it's got its own beauty. It's got its own vitality. Very interesting, I found.
And we're working to definitely not turning away anything that's, high paying by any means. I hope I didn't give that impression, but when we look at, where do we have the most competitive advantage to like go out and target our efforts, that's where we felt we could provide the biggest bang for the buck, to recruit, because we had the infrastructure and those things in place. So, however, we had another distribution center that came through earlier in March. They were only in the valley for like 90 minutes. They drove up I-5, came over White's Pass, went through here, and we think they went to either Moses Lake or Tri-Cities things, but they didn't tell us. They didn't want to meet with any property owners, anything like that. We had to gather all the information ahead of time and put it in a packet, and they had that, but we're continuing to, work those kind of things all the time, so.
Okay.
And so we just wanted to share with you what the plan was for the next 5 years, and then in the packet that Don and Mayor Hart have, there's a letter for another 5-year commitment for support. And so that's what we wanted to, and then be able to answer any questions or even get any feedback or ideas for what we can do more to improve the plan and as we go forward. So appreciate it.
All right.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
if I may refer to that letter,
yes, please.
respectfully, council, you didn't get a copy of this. It came to the mayor and myself, got a copy. And they are requesting $12,000 per year for 5 years for total commitment of $60,000. We are not asking for a commitment at this point. The only direction I would need tonight is whether we should bring this back for discussion at a council meeting and a decision. We have supported YCDA for a number of years now. I don't know for sure, way before I got here. So this again is just making a commitment, and you would authorize myself or the mayor to sign a commitment letter suggesting that we're going to budget $12,000 for the next 5 years. And that begins July 1?
It begins 2019.
2019, thank you.
So that'd be for this next coming budget.
Correct.
Coming budget, yeah.
And we already fund them, and I can't remember, Jonathan, maybe you know how much we give you guys right now? I don't remember right off the top of my head.
It's 8,000.
8? That sounds about right.
And so the part of the reason for the increase is there hasn't been any substantial increase in our organization's budget since about 2000. And so, for instance, between the last 5-year campaign, which was done in 2013, and the one before that, and the budget overall grew by $100,000. If you adjust that for inflation, we actually lost capacity to continue to provide services. Certainly other things, expenses have gone up. Healthcare just being one, but other kind of things. And so, right now we're out and meeting with municipalities. We met with the county already, and some are being asked to go so much as doubling. And right now we've gotten, I want to say 25 pledges back, both from private business and public, and the average increase has been about 50%. So depending on the type of business, the industry, the situation that particular industry is in, some have stayed where they were, some have increased by 25%, some have gone up as far as 400%, but that's kind of the average, and that's part of the reason why it's an increase from 8 to 12 like that. So
Our first big investment, which sets the trajectory for all of this, was Astria Health. And actually, the focus was on making sure that jobs were coming in, that were paying a good wage, which would mean that they would have a good payer mix there.
And I'm looking up to just verify what Russ had said about the 8. I'm not texting somebody, so just so you know, I would never do that. I can't find it.
I think you said it too, right? You know what the amount? Yeah.
Is that right?
I think that's correct.
Okay, well, I trust you guys.
Well, we get two of them to say it. They really have a pretty good clue, so. All right.
I
Is
guess,
there-
Madam Mayor, I would find myself in favor of directing staff to go to work on that and
Okay,
move it on to to another meeting.
I think that sounds good. How is everyone else? Is everyone else in accord?
Mm-hmm.
So then,
I understand. We will bring it forward.
bring it forward. All right. Thank you, and thank you, gentlemen, for
Thank you very much.
coming tonight, and thank you for all the good work you've been doing for our community. We appreciate that as well. Make sure, yeah,
It's easy
forward.
to do projects here, so.
That's what we like to
Keep bringing
do.
them.
Yeah. We like to see progress, that's right. Okay. Okay, let's get back on track here. Okay. So, let me see, I've lost control of, let's do animal control. Okay, so we had a report back, if you remember correctly, animal control, and we've been talking about whether or not we want to extend the amount of money, or the amount of hours, excuse me. I think go from 20 to maybe some other number. And I think if you look there, I don't, can we enlarge that at all, Jackie? The part where the numbers are there? Oh, there you go. Just right in there, the breakdown of the, this is for the past year, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I don't know. You guys have all read this report, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, every day I see the animal control officer going around, not always having animals in her car, but certainly there's lots of little animals running around out there, yeah.
Well, all the
Yeah.
time.
So,
That being said, Madam Mayor, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 citizens of the community come before me and complain about animals running loose. Barking dogs, there's not a lot you can do about barking dogs, especially if the owner's not home, but animals running loose. I got another one yesterday. Somebody was complaining, asking me, who do I go to get animal control out because these animals are just roaming around. So I think more hours are warranted.
There was a pretty major mess up on a situation here a few weeks ago that the city manager is aware of. It kind of makes you wonder.
well, taking care of that particular situation, I believe. But I think, you know, having more hours and more visibility, and perhaps even, I don't know, it feels like we should do something more in the area of communication, public communication about taking care of animals.
Madam Mayor, I think that's a good idea. I also know that people know more or less the hours that our animal control officer keeps, and the instant our animal control officer goes home, those animals are turned loose and are roaming the streets. There were a pair of dogs that would run all the way down Grandview Avenue at a specific time every single day. I would watch them go all the way down every single day, and it was like 5 minutes after she left town.
They
and
kind of
back.
followed her out of town.
And there's other dogs that are always sitting on the streets, and somehow or other they manage to not get run over, but still they don't belong on our streets. And I know somebody owns them
Yeah.
because they're always in front of the same house.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have an animal ordinance in order to keep that sort of thing from happening, and I'm all in favor of people having their pets. I wouldn't want to take that away from anyone. I've got my share of those furry critters as well, but they don't, run around attacking joggers. They don't attack other dogs. They don't do their business in other people's yards.
Exactly. So I tend to agree. Do we have an idea of, anybody got a concept of how many hours we want to contract for? Do we want to, right now we're doing, I believe, isn't it, Mr. St., 20 hours currently? Do we want to, when we're talking about more hours, but then also do we want to shake up the times when she's here, or, maybe switch out from, 8 to 5 to maybe, I don't know, just about, there's got to be a way to catch those little critters, more traps or whatever it is that you need to have. I don't know, but I do think having her out there and patrolling and or I don't know if it's a she or not, but to have the animal control person out patrolling and capturing the critters, and try to make the owners a little bit more responsible for their pets.
I don't know what it's going to cost in additional funds, and I guess we have to be aware of that as well and be careful about that. But I'd certainly like to see another 10 hours a week for sure.
Yeah. I'm just wondering also, should we be also looking at the dog licensing fee to kind of help? Is that even a possibility of the licensing fee? I'm not too entirely sure that these ones that are running around actually have licenses, but
Frequently not. And, we upped the fee just a couple of years ago.
Did we? Mm-hmm.
Significantly, and I don't know if it's time to raise that or not. I just like to see people aware, and people will know pretty quickly that they're getting picked up, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Pick
up
up
the
more
fees
animals.
for dogs picked up.
I'm sorry, pardon?
Maybe up the fees for dogs getting picked up.
Or to get them back. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
We did that as well a couple years ago. We increased that fee and required spay and neutering and stuff like that.
So that's already part of the ordinance.
And Madam Mayor, we can look at that again if you wish.
I kind of think maybe it doesn't have
was
to
a couple
be
years ago.
huge, but maybe it just has to be, something to kind of give it that little bit of, look, this is serious. We're serious about animal control here.
But I also like your idea about publicity and getting some sort of public awareness out there. And
Yeah.
We have a lot of abandoned pets in this area. People dropping boxes of puppies off.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, why don't take them to the veterinarian? They take them to my yard, because I believe that every time there's a new moon cycle, I get 5 or 6 more cats in my neighborhood.
there's a lot of dumping right there by the
By the
brand
school.
new Sunnyside Park.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, so is it are we in agreement that we should look at least 10 hours, 5 hours, see what we can afford? Between 5 to 10?
Can we price out 5 to 10
Price it
just
out?
to see what it looks like?
See what it's going to look like?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
The Humane Society actually provided quotes, I guess, for increasing to 30 and 40 hours. Okay, and it basically is going to, at 40 hours, it'll cost you $70,000, if I remember correctly. You're paying approximately $35,000 now. So if you double that to 40, it would be about 70, and it was a little over $50,000 for the 30. Okay, we already have that information that was provided to us
Okay.
while we were doing our budget process.
Okay.
Keep in mind that what you pay for is not only the dog catcher, the animal control officer in town, but the animal control officer having to take animals to Yakima to book them, so to speak. And the booking process of a dog is a little bit longer than it takes to book a person over here. You got to give them shots and worm in them and various other things, and it's quite a process. We wash them and they hose them down and give them baths and check them for fleas and ticks and scurvy and whatever else dogs get, and get them cleaned up and fed and
And give back to the owner.
and then they'll give them back to the owner. So, but again, we are trying to be progressive, but 20 hours doesn't get you 20 hours in town. It gets you 20 hours total work. So again, just pick 1 or 2 dogs up, you're gone for 3 hours. So that's part of our problem. So I believe that we could easily go 30 hours, and I can bring that back. I will reach out to Humane Society. I have a meeting with them on Wednesday, and we will have a discussion about that, see if those numbers are still current. Again, that was 6 months ago or better, and if they'll still honor those numbers or if they've increased at all, and then I can report back to you at the next week's meeting, just briefly, and then we can see where you want to go with that. I won't put it on the agenda until I bring it to you next week. So it'll probably could go on the agenda for the May 23rd, the second meeting in May.
Right.
Well, except I'm going to be gone. It's 28th? Oh, okay.
That's
So we'll-
Monday is Memorial Day, isn't it?
29th.
29th.
So we could potentially have that on the agenda to be effective July 1. You did not budget for an increase. You budgeted for 35,000 or whatever it is. I apologize, I just can't remember exactly what the number was. But it's pretty close to $35,000 to $37,000. And so that would require a budget amendment to increase that fee beginning July 1 if that's what you choose to do. Okay, so, but it's certainly worth exploring.
Is that agreeable?
Very much.
Okay, then we direct staff to do that. Oh, excuse me, Ron?
I would like to, being you're going to be talking about what the situation I talked about a few weeks ago shouldn't have happened, but she told the person with the dog went and fit in her cage and was just a little dog like that, and that led to the whole fiasco that followed. And that was just, I feel, just plain negligence. And increasing the hours isn't going to take away the negligence, and so I think that has to be addressed as well.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Strimler, we're going to discuss that on Wednesday.
Okay.
That's the purpose of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for adding that to the conversation. So, we do make sure that we are covering that particular issue. So that's, nobody wants to see animals. We don't want to, that's why it's called
Humane.
All right. Is there any other thoughts on the animal control at this point? Well, I think we've covered everything on our agenda.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, wait, we
item
do
D.
have one more thing here, yes.
And in retreat.
It got kind of buried in red here, so fortunately, he had a clean list over here. So our retreat, thank you. We did come up with a date, I believe, in August, I believe. August, what was it?
August 4th.
August 4th, I believe. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
What I'm asking for is, do you want to stay in town or do you want to go out of town? We did one over in Zilla a couple of years ago. Several of you were on the commission. I think you went as a reporter, if I remember correct.
That was a hard place to find.
It was, but it was good once you found it. So that's the question, I guess. We will take care of the actual location. We don't want you to get down into that and having that kind of a debate or discussion. I just need to know if you want to stay in town or if you want to move it. We also did one at Snipes one year. It was a little bit difficult going up the steps. And so that's really what I'm looking for, is if you want to have a retreat where you're out of town or if you want to keep it local in town. And we'll figure out how to take care of it. We'll either cater it to the community center or we'll reserve a room at one of the local restaurants or facilities, or we'll schedule something out of town.
On a ground floor.
On a ground floor.
Right.
Madam Mayor, we had it at the warehouse in Zilla one time
Yes.
as well, and I didn't think that went particularly well. That was a kind of an awkward place for us to meet.
It's a little wide open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they had us in a room, in that little side room, but it was real long and it just wasn't real comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't work out really
You're
well.
going to have to be there for 8 hours and try to make it semi-comfortable. Do we want to stay in town? Or would we like to?
And I'm not talking about Seattle or
within about 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Although that would be interesting. We'd have to take that out of some fun or other, and another budget amendment, I imagine. So, what's the feeling?
Doesn't matter to me.
Out of town.
Out of town? Mr. Hicks?
If I work out of town, doesn't matter to me.
Out of town, okay. Mr. Boisman?
I can easily find most places in the valley, so out of town is nice. I think it's a change of scenery. It kind of
Freshens you up a little?
It does. It kind of changes your mental mindset, I think, when you've gone away a little bit. I don't know why, but it does.
When it
Okay.
gets a lot closer, I'll be able to tell you if I can attend.
You're going to be
You're
there.
going to be there.
You're so far out right now, my schedule ain't even close to that yet.
You're riding with me.
So I think our direction is out of town.
Very good, that's what we need. We will work on it and let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Now, did we hit all the A's and T's and cross the dots? All right, well, being nothing further to come before us, meeting adjourned. Without objection.